Yes, hello, I am James Rowlands, and today it's the WNR362. It's WWE Hell in a Cell. But I am not alone. I am joined by Jaxie Scarlett. How you doing?
Hi, doing well, thank you. And you, James?
Yeah, all good, all good. But this is a very special show today because not only you join us, as always, with WWE events, but also a very special guest. People will remember them from their time. Selcet Match Pod joins us as well. How are you guys doing?
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thank you for having us once again. It's becoming an annual tradition that we'll get involved for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's really, really weird because Jaxie has done every WWE pay-per-view since last September, apart from Hell in a Cell in October, which was with you guys. Of course, and it's Simon and Chris, if I remember off the top of my head and not reading it.
Yeah, that's us. He is Si, I am Chris. Yeah, it's nice to be back. I think Halloween special was the last thing we did.
Oh, yeah, the spooktacular. I mean, what you guys been up to? I mean, I know, obviously, you're carrying on with the podcast, but, you know, with that and...
Oh, I think we lost Si. Yeah.
Oh, I think yeah.
Yeah, as you say, we're still rolling out through the episodes, still hitting our various match types. We're just getting geared up to start Elimination Chamber as the next series coming up. So a lot of good matches that we're piling through at the moment in prep for that.
Well, no, it's good because like you said, you guys looking at different match types. Of course, that's why we're focusing on Hell in a Cell today. And this is quite a big question, and this is just for Select Match Pod at the moment. But what are your thoughts on WWE this year, just briefly? Because obviously we don't want to go into kind of massive detail with it. But how have you thought of the product? Has it jumped off a bridge like everybody else is?
I don't think it's quite as bad as everyone else is saying. I'll be honest, James. I do not envy your schedule watching every single second of wrestling that goes on, not just WWE, but everything else. I'm not quite sure how he managed to find the time to do it. But I am not as down on WWE as everybody else seems to be at the moment. I know that the main thing is Raw seems to be an endless cycle of rematches every single week. But generally, I'm not ready to throw myself off a cliff over it, let's say.
What about you, Chris? How you find the product?
It's a weird one to be because they seem to have peaks and troughs. Because for every 5-5 Funhouse match or clever adaptation to do Money in the Bank, you have constant reruns of matches every single week. I mean, we'll get onto it during recall when we go through this pay-per-view, but we get a recap of a show match during the pay-per-view. That's how treading water they are at the moment. So it's weird because, as I say, they show moments where they could be innovative and absolutely brilliant, and then they're happy just to sit with the same dirge week after week sometimes. I think hopefully they're just treading water until they can get crowds back properly before they start kicking on building, but we'll see.
Well, like I said, we live...
I think that's the key. It does feel like a bit of a holding pattern at the minute. So, like, Riddle and Orton, Diaz turn, that's somewhere down the road. It seems to be the slowest story going at the moment. Like, it's just the same thing week after week. So,
well, like I said, we live in hope and hoping that each show will be better. And of course, Jaxie, we usually watch Raw or talk about Raw and SmackDown before the pay-per-view, but we didn't want to put anybody through it today, so I did it myself at the weekend. Don't worry about that. But what have you thought of the build-up towards this pay-per-view? Because it is repetitive, isn't it?
I mean, I have to agree with both Chris and Simon on their comments. I feel like it's got peaks and troughs. There's some content across both shows that makes you interested in the product. However, then I'm slowly but surely just kind of finding at the moment that the end product isn't worth what we're getting in the build-up. So I feel like they're just kind of lacking in certain areas that I hope that is going to pick up with crowd coming in soon. But we'll just have to kind of see.
I think without a doubt. And, of course, before we got to Hell in a Cell, we had a Hell in a Cell match because you know how that works out. It was on SmackDown, Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio. I'll start with Simon. Did you see the match and what were your thoughts on it? And did you? I think you thought exactly the same as kind of everybody else. Of why was this match actually taking place on SmackDown?
Yeah, exactly. It was a bit of an odd one to advertise it a few weeks in ahead, and then suddenly, was it like Thursday or Wednesday that it changed across to SmackDown? And was the only match.
What life is like for your baby.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We're gonna everybody
What
listening.
that was then.
Yeah, everybody listening today. You know, we might have a few audio issues here and there, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Right? You know.
I apologise. I have Twitter up at the same time, and it refreshed my feed, and it's just on a story. So, and it clearly was on loud, so I apologise.
That's fine, don't worry. And yeah, I only watched the main event of that, and there's no way I would have caught up on SmackDown if it wasn't for the recording this today. But I've been at Download Festival over the weekend, so I only managed to watch Hell in a Cell this morning as we're recording on the Tuesday, and managed to watch the main event of that. I really enjoyed the Mysterio and Reigns match. I thought the way they set up with Mysterio relying on weapons and sort of desperately fighting tooth and nail and looking like he had Reigns on the ropes for large parts of it was good storytelling. My only, and I think I put this on our Twitter, I was convinced that something was going to happen with the match to set any sort of storyline up for Reigns going into Hell in a Cell, but as I'm sure we'll come on to, disappointing in that regard.
No, what I've really enjoyed Mysterio beating the crap out of Roman Reigns, which is something I never thought I'd actually enjoy until I was watching it, and maybe a little bit surprised it happened. I mean, Jaxie, what did you think of not SmackDown as such, but just that main event match? Because with Roman Reigns as well, does it lessen the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view that he's not going to be on it?
I mean, I think that it definitely took a huge blow, especially for Peacock, who probably were expecting to be sort of advertising this as their main event type match. So I think it did come as a little bit of a shock to then be getting it on Fox on the Friday. However, the match itself, as we've said, it was really good. I really did enjoy the fact that at one point I did surprisingly go, oh gosh, is Rey Mysterio getting one over on him? Is he possibly going to pull an upset? But, you know, I think that is, you know, all down to the wrestlers. Both Rey Mysterio and Roman worked really well together. They pulled off some really great looking stunts as well in there that just kind of gripped you into the match itself even more. And overall, I thought it was a really good match. I still think that it should have been in Hell in a Cell. I don't know why they did decide to move it over to Fox, but overall I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think without doubt it was a really, really good match, but I think with Reigns not being at the pay-per-view, kind of thinking, oh, that's something I would have been interested in. But we talk about Hell in a Cell, and of course it's going to be the last Thunderdome pay-per-view. What are our thoughts on the Thunderdome? I mean, Chris, we'll start with you, because obviously, you know, I want to try and be fair as we go around. How do you think Thunderdome? I think it's been quite good for WWE.
Yeah, I think, as we were saying earlier with Peaks and Troughs, it's one of their moments of actual innovation from them that's completely worked once they've got rid of all the far-right banners and bits and pieces and people who shouldn't be on those kind of cameras doing the stuff they're doing. But, yeah, we needed something. There's only so much absolutely empty, quiet arenas you could take before you switched off from the product completely. And it's nice. It's the fact that you do actually get quite an atmosphere in there with just a load of screens is, I think, A, testament to the way they set up and the way they do their sound mixing, and B, testament to the fans who actually do, I imagine, crank it up and try to make an extra effort to actually put some atmosphere into that arena.
Yeah, I think the Thunderdome's been quite good. Did anybody get any negative thoughts on it, maybe?
My only question around it is, every time they introduce the Thunderdome, it's always the award-winning Thunderdome. They're not very specific about what award it's won. It won like Slammy's Innovation of the Year or something.
Yeah, I'm about to say, sorry, it did win WWE's Best Electronic Product 2021. I think you'll find Vince McMahon nominated
by it. WWE.
Yeah, chosen by the WWE board, marketed.
I just want a kid to like kind of grow up on this year, and then when the fans do come back, go, I miss having the Thunderdome. Him having all these fans here now.
Do you imagine when you show these pay-per-views to people in 30, 40 years and we still got the digital copies, you're going to be turning around going, yeah, this was the year of the great virus when people couldn't leave their houses.
And so they watched from their screens in their pajama bottoms.
This was the way entertainment used to be. We used to watch gladiators on big electronic screens fight each other.
The good old days. That's what it will be known as. So, like I said, we'll move on now to the pay-per-view just before the 20th of June because, like I said, I love watching extra bits of wrestling as well. So I did put myself through the kickoff, hosted by Caleb Braxton, joined by JBL, Jerry Lawyer, and Peter Rosenberg as the panel. Now, I don't know if I'm just WWE drunk, but I don't mind the group on the kickoff panel. I don't know if anybody else actually saw the kickoff or has seen these kind of guys interact, but I actually don't mind it.
I mean, I've seen them on the panel before, but I must admit I didn't watch the pre-show for Hell in a Cell this time around.
Well, I'm going to get through
I
it.
don't particularly mind the... Sorry, I was just going to say, I don't really mind a pre-show for like shows like this where... So what was the runtime for the actual Hell in a Cell? About 2 hours 40.
Yeah,
but when you've got it for WrestleMania and it's when it's not split over 2 days and it's an 8-hour show anyway, and then you've got a 2-hour pre-show, that is way too much. So I don't mind it if for smaller ones, but it seems
is just showing loads of like backstory that we're going to get just before the actual like matches themselves anyway on the actual show. So it.
No, I've learnt that trick. I do fast forward the promo videos now because I'm thinking, I'm going to watch this in about an hour's time. So I try and get by that. We do see a lot of it, but apparently a lot of fans experience streaming issues with the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view on Peacock and on the kickoff as well about CD and error. But of course, being in the good old UK and having the old W network and watching it on demand as well, there was kind of no problems from us. This whole Peacock thing sounds like a complete disaster in America at this moment, doesn't it? You know?
I'm sure WWE don't feel that way with the billions of been invested.
They're counting their cash.
I think they're all right with it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably only Peacock that really are suffering from this.
Well, we see a lot of video packages. Of course, Shayna Baszler versus Alexa Bliss. And the panel discussed the match as well. Focus Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. We see Seth Rollins and Cesaro. We see Sami Zayn was interviewed backstage. He spoke about karma and he said he's skeptical that it existed until he saw what happened with Kevin Owens. And then our kickoff match was Natalya versus Mandy Rose. Yes, a match everybody was desperate to see. So how we got here, we'll start with Select Match Pod. Natalya versus Mandy Rose. How did they get to this big match? You know, how did the feud work out, basically?
Well, they got a load of balls. They put them in a bucket. They drew it at random and went, there you go. There's your kickoff show.
Honestly, it was kind of weird, but I'm going to make a point later, I think, about this match as well. But we see early grappling give way to Rose earning the upper hand, grounding the more established competitor, working over a body scissors, then a guillotine. We see nice power by Natalya to get out. She fought back in a match and rocked Rose with discus lariat, could not put her away. Reversals, counters, and near falls dominate the closing moments of the match until the Queen of the Hearts trapped her opponent in a sharpshooter, forcing the submission and earning the hard-fought victory. Now, did anybody actually see this match and what were their thoughts on it?
There you go. Silence is definitely in there.
Well, you know what?
Well, yes, as I openly said before, I didn't check out the pre-show, but I also wasn't too upset when I heard that this was the match that was on there because I too am questioning why they're having a match.
This happened because it kicked off on Raw because they were arguing about whether they're going to be there for looks or there for because of their surname, which is a kind of nice way to do it, but it just shows there are no women tag teams left and we need more women on the main roster. And as for the match, I mean, it was okay. Definitely. But it was like a performance center match, you know, where each one of them had the moves that they were going to use in their head and were just literally going through the kind of the motions. But is Natalya underappreciated? I think that would be fair to say, wouldn't it? I think she's a great talent.
No, Natalya's a perfectly good talent. It's like anything with WWE. If you can't do the mic work at the same time and they just don't have anything for you, you're going to get buried. You're going to find yourself on the pre-show. We've seen much better talents than Natalya get absolutely buried along the way. So you know what? She's still there. She's picking up a paycheck. She's doing her job. I'm sure she's thrilled still to be there.
I mean, again, I feel like Natalia deserves probably a lot more than what she's getting on the show because of how much of a veteran she is, how much she probably does for the company, especially training new talent as well and working with new talent. However, I have to agree that her mic work doesn't remotely make us jump at wanting her within like sort of a main title picture role. I don't know if that is maybe down to needing a whole character change or not, or just more practice time on the mic. But sometimes I do struggle with getting behind some of Natalia's promos. But that's not to say that she is not a good wrestler in the ring. She really is, and you could see it. But when mic work and wrestling work doesn't add up together, sometimes you are kind of left down to the lesser matches that might not be in a title picture role. I mean, she's very lucky at the moment. She's got the tag team titles at the moment, so I think she's doing predominantly well for what she could be doing.
Yeah, I think that's excellent, like I said. And then the kickoff finished, and we started the main card. And we see, of course, a video package featuring a female DJ talking about Hell in a Cell, very Warrior-esque. If anybody's seen that film, one of my favourite films of all time as well. And we see Ozzy Osbourne, Straight to Hell played, pyro shot off around the venue. So with our Select Match Pod, we go Simon. Because you're interested in the promo videos and stuff like that, aren't you? I mean, what did you think of the opening?
Yeah, I normally a big fan of them. I quite liked this. We talked about this last year, and it's always going to be the same thing when they've got Hell in a Cell it's a standalone pay-per-view as opposed to having them come together, having Hell in a Cell matches come together organically. But I thought they did a good job here. The only thing I would say is it did go on the opening promo for quite a while, considering that we got almost exactly the same promo video before each of the individual matches. So I think you can either have one or the other, but having both it feels like. You still there, James?
Yeah, my connection is unstable, much like myself at this moment in time. Like I said, we're going to be lots of stuff like this. Yeah, like I said, we'll move on because I didn't hear anything. But we'll move on next to excitement level and the match most looking forward to. And we'll go to Chris for that one.
Right. No one's going to agree with me with this because I love everything Alexa Bliss has been doing recently with the whole spooky character, and I love the fact that it's not just wrestling, and I love all the goofball horror stuff they're doing with it. So that's actually was my pick for the card tonight.
Well, I mean, did anybody else have Bliss and Baszler as the match they're most looking forward to? I mean, Simon, did you?
Anyone else in the world, or
You're just not the independent free thinker I am. That's fine. You go around wanting Lashley against.
Well, my match was Natalia versus Mandy Rose, but you all buried it, so I'm not going to...
That's bullshit. I don't believe that for a second.
Mine was quite... Well, not an obvious one with the main event. I will never get bored of watching Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
That's a good answer. Jaxie?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of that match, but I think I was mostly looking forward to seeing Bianca Belair and Bayley in the Hell in a Cell.
Well, we're going to start off with that match as we see Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on commentary. We'll go into detail about those two in a little bit. But like I said, Jackson, we've seen Bianca Belair versus Bayley. Has this feud, we were moaning about maybe the feuds not reaching a certain level. Have you thought of the build-up towards Hell in a Cell with these two women? And were you more excited at this point than you were at WrestleMania Backlash?
So I think ultimately my excitement level more came from the fact that it was like seeing someone that's not one of the four horsewomen within as a woman being in a Hell in a Cell. I still feel like there wasn't enough build up to really be having them in a Hell in a Cell, although the match itself, like we will start to talk about soon, really kind of pretty much makes up for that. I think that the feud definitely needs to kind of be over and done with now, because I don't think that there's any need for it to carry on. But I also feel like there really wasn't enough to carry on this feud in order for this to have taken place. that being said, I loved this match.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to it right now because we see Bayley trying to utilise the chair. Of course, we know a history there when it comes inside Hell in a Cell. Of course, hair versus chair. There's going to be a lot of this. So Bianca started strong until Bayley targeted her opponent's arm. She better use the kendo stick and the sunset flip powerbomb as she dominated the action. Again, a nice callback to the kendo sticks with Belair putting Bayley through them, set up between the cage and the ring. And I love talking to Michael Cole as where we see Belair being beaten around, fought back and tied her own head to Bayley's wrist, making it easy to beat her around ringside. She was hair cuffed. Michael Cole actually said that. It's a new idea for a strap match, though. I think that would be great. But late in the bout, Bayley introduced a ladder. That would prove her downfall. She nearly won with a roast plant on the ladder, but Blair delivered a senton to lower back and finished the roll off with a sickening KOD on the opening ladder for the definitive victory. So, Simon, what were your thoughts on that?
So, first of all, Jack's comments about the build is exactly right. Is laughing at someone enough to build a Hell in a Cell match around? I don't think it really is. But yeah, I really enjoyed the match. It started off with Belair almost looking to get a quick win, which felt a little bit odd, but yeah, it developed nicely. The hair spots were a nice callback, were nice to see, and the callback spot with the double kendo stick was good as well. A couple of spots in this one that really stood out, though, the sunset flip powerbomb into the cell that Bayley hit, and then the KOD into the ladder, which was sort of set on its side. That looked absolutely brutal. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it was really, what about you, Jaxie? I mean, like I said, the match kind of took over then, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, as you guys said, it was like a really fast at first, and I thought, oh gosh, like how is this just going to be kind of like sloppily put together? But it really was like a really good build up, and I must admit, I just absolutely love Bayley as a heel. I'm a huge fan of her staying heel forever. I really enjoyed like sort of her telling Michael Cole to shut up constantly throughout the commentary going on, and yeah, just everything to do with the ladders just looked absolutely brutal. Fair play to both women. I think they did great in the match.
I think without doubt, I enjoyed watching.
Just one thing about the commentary in this one. So I was just going to say one thing about the commentary that I noticed on this one. Pat McAfee at one point sounded exactly like Mr. Corman from Scrubs. He's the guy that goes, "Hello, Laverne." He said so many. What popped into my head once, and I just couldn't get it out of my head after that for the entire night.
Like
so that was my ear for the whole thing.
Well, as long as it's not my machines, then we'll be all right, I suppose. But we like I said, I enjoy watching both of these women wrestle. The finish looked fantastic. It was a great match. Really good way to open up the show. So, with Chris, I want to know your score out of 5 and your thoughts on the match as well, because I'm not leaving you out.
No, there's very little to add now that those two have picked the meat off it. I'm just left with a bear, mate. No, you know I love Bayley anyway. She was my MVP of Hell in a Cell last year. Absolutely phenomenal. And again, another really strong performance for her. The callback stuff was great. Anyone telling Michael Cole to shut up, I can completely get on board with. Same. Don't even need to tell him. Just give him abuse. Just scream at him. I'll be buying your merchandise. It's absolutely fine. But yeah, she was great. Belair looks $1 million every time I've seen her wrestle. So I'm giving this a very solid 3.5 out of 5 from me.
3.5. Simon, what are you going to give out of 5?
Same, 3.5.
3.5. Jaxie?
See, I'm going to be nice. I'm actually giving it a 4.5 because it was probably one of my favourites of the night.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.25 as well. Just because, like I said, we're a lot nicer than Select Match Pod when it comes.
It wasn't that long ago that we covered a whole series of Hell in a Cell matches, so I feel like I've been spoiled by them to make a comparison against the two. But
so prediction-wise, of course, we faced off with Select Match Pod. Come on, Team WNR.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I'll just point out that you actually faced off against Chris. I had nothing to do with these predictions. I'd have obviously taken credit if we won.
Chris spoke on behalf of you as we are part of the team.
And to be fair to Chris, that bus that just came up, he just freed off it, mate. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna point out, as a team player, not only for Select Match, but also as the wrestling community podcasters as a whole, I look down on
my predictions and realised we had an exact matching set. And I was like, right,
Wait,
there's
There's one
going to be no fun here. So I changed one of my predictions just so that someone would actually win.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself
that was very kind of you. That was very kind of you.
Right, so anyway, we both went for Belair. When I say both, of course, Select Match Pod and the WNR. So it's 1-1. We are locked at 1-1 as we go towards the polls. We asked somebody who went for Belair. And then we see her getting interviewed as well. Briefly, she said she would never forgive Bayley. But what's next for both? Simon, what do you think's next for Belair and Bayley? Will they continue this feud, or do you think they'll go their separate ways?
I think they'll be moved apart. I'm really not sure who's next to face Belair, to be honest. I don't know what you guys think, but I think the Money in the Bank, whoever wins the Money in the Bank match, it could be a very quick setup for the next feud from that. But I'm not really sure who is next in line to face it.
It seems like all the big women's stars are tied up in other bits and pieces. So unless they're going to wrap up one of these other by feuds pretty quickly and have someone go from there, or if they're going to push someone up from NXT, I've no idea. As you say, it's kind of an odd one. I'm at a loss who's actually going to be picking her up next. Got to be heel though. They're not going to switch it. So it's got to be someone coming up. It's got to be a heel to face it. But as I say, we've not got anyone really around who isn't doing much.
No. I think the SmackDown women's division more than anything else is ready for a draft.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, the state of the SmackDown women's division is a bit of a joke. But I look at Bianca Belair and I think she might work better as a heel, or do they in the women's division, Jaxie? What do you reckon?
I don't know. I don't think. I think that I think she could pull off a heel role. However, I feel like we've had so many different face and heel turns lately that I don't feel like it would make sense to turn her heel right now. But I do agree. We do need some sort of new heel to come in and actually be considered some form of threat. I mean, if they even contemplate trying to again repush Carmella at this moment in time in this situation, it's just not going to work. And the only other two that I can really think of at the moment on SmackDown is Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, and neither of them should be facing the likes of Bianca Belair right now, and especially as in solos. They're not as up to speed in terms of, I don't think a lot of people would actually believe that they genuinely have a shot. So yeah, unless we've got someone coming up from NXT or a draft happens, I really can't see who's going to be the next sort of opponent for Bianca. But I am intrigued to find out who it will be.
I said it is going to be interesting times ahead. Quick side note, Select Match Pod's thoughts. I'll start with you, Simon. On the commentary team, I put Adnan Virk, and I've quickly scribbled it out. Jimmy Smith and Pat McAfee. What are your thoughts on them? And do you think that actually brings something? Because Jaxie's got quite some strong opinions about certain people.
No. Okay, but Pat, I must admit, real quick. Sorry to cut you in. I just want to say, Pat McAfee has been actually slowly but surely changing my mind. I have been enjoying him. So yeah, I thought I'd just quickly point that.
So first of all, Jimmy Smith. I think Vince McMahon has seen old UFC tapes, seen Joe Rogan, and gone, "Get me that guy." And they've just gone for the closest, the next available option.
Give that guy, but cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. He looks a bit like him. He sounds very similar to him. So yeah, I think they've tried to bring in Joe Rogan and failed. Pat McAfee, I think I'm in the same boat, to be honest. I wasn't a fan to start with, but gradually he seems. I like the way he tries to relate things to legitimate sports quite often, and obviously with him being former NFL player, then he's in a position to do that. So I think he does add some legitimacy in that respect, but he's still a bit annoying.
I think. Do you know?
And let's not talk about Michael Cole, as you know our feelings anyway.
I feel like Pat McAfee reminds me of that commentator from the movie Dodgeball. You know, the one that's just kind of like comes out with really
He's wearing a
random
blindfold.
shit.
It's an interesting approach.
Let's even pay that, yeah.
Do you know who I'm on about? Just the one who's really
Jason Bateman. Yeah.
Yes, his character. It's just really funny because for some reason, because that's all you can hear is Pat's voice. For some reason, I think of him.
With you saying something about Smith and his calling, like the kind of a UFC kind of match calling, do we think WWE are just trying to confuse Brock and get him back full time? Are they just going to be like, they're going to have him there, they're going to replace the ring just slowly with an octagon, and they hope that Brock just won't notice he's actually back in WWE? He'll be like, yeah, I can't believe how many UFC matches I've won.
SummerSlam's in Vegas and it's on a Saturday night, so it's basically UFC already.
Well, I want to see the camera where they look at the commentary team react to what's just happened in room. Kind of I mean, that's the next step, really, isn't it? In everything that we want. But anyway, enough about commentation.
I don't want to see Michael Cole. I don't want to see Michael Cole on screen for a second.
We'll move on because obviously we've got Cole angst. But we see in a playground saying, "Careful what you wish for and expect the unexpected." And then we get video package setting up Seth Rollins versus Cesaro. Before we get to the match, Chris, I'll ask you, what mood on the way to this match right now?
Sorry, you broke up completely there. I can hear you at all.
Your thoughts on the feud between Seth Rollins and Cesaro before we get into the match?
All right, okay. Yes, so it feels like WrestleMania was forever ago since with these two guys still going at it. To be honest, with the way the match, I know without getting hugely into how the match goes, it went a couple of months ago, Cesaro wins and he's on a massive push. And it's like, okay, great, Cesaro's getting what he deserves. We know he's ridiculously talented. We all want him to have a major push, I'm assuming. I'm assuming no one's got any Cesaro ants and just wants to see him fail. But by the time we got to this one, I'm not sure why we're having it, apart from the fact they can just get out of the way and both competitors can now move on to other things, I'm assuming.
Well, it just seems weird that, Cesaro had the Universal title match at WrestleMania Backlash, and then, like I said, you're going straight back in to the kind of Seth Rollins feud. But we'll get on with the match, and we see Rollins attacking Cesaro during his entrance, immediately putting the Swiss Superman on the defensive. I do like a fast start, but outside of a few spurts of offense from Cesaro, Rollins dominated the action, and of course seeking to avenge his WrestleMania 37 loss. But the Swiss Superstar fought back using uppercuts and jabs to stun the Architect. Rollins re-established control of the match momentarily, but Cesaro delivered a swing. He looked for the sharpshooter, then a crossface, but Rollins ultimately out-wrestled him with a roll-up for the pinfall victory. And afterwards, Rollins gloated as he headed up the ramp and said, "Everything is even." Jaxie, what were your thoughts on that matchup?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good match. I think Cesaro and Seth Rollins work really well together. The ending annoyed me. I just think that these wrestlers deserve so much better than these goddamn roll-up pins.
But at least you're watching WWE.
See, I don't mind a Wiley.
Yeah, but like at pay-per-view events, it's like, come on.
Sorry,
like,
Chris.
We had like a really good match. Had a really good match at WrestleMania between them, and they wanted to carry this on. And it's kind of like when you end a match in a roll-up pin, you're kind of thinking, okay, so we're going to get this match again down the road at some point, And I don't really want it to be that Cesaro is stuck just in an ongoing feud with Seth Rollins.
Good point. I was just going to say, I have no problem with a wily veteran with a roll-up pin. If anything, people, when you want WWE to look more realistic at times, and go, yeah, that's completely believable that the veteran would on quick roll-up and a pin. As I say, I'm more annoyed that with Rollins winning, this does nothing but harm Cesaro. Rollins could have easily taken this loss. Cesaro, they could have moved on. It wouldn't have damaged Rollins. But this just blunts Cesaro. And as you say, there's a danger that they'll either move away from each other and it's just Cesaro couldn't get it done against Rollins for this one, or we're just sticking a holding pattern with him again with a third match. And as much as I love watching him wrestle, I don't have a huge amount of interest in seeing him with nothing on the line.
I also just going on from that, it just kind of leaves Cesaro at a sort of crossroads as to which directions he's really going to go if he's just kind of forever stuck in his ongoing feud with Seth Rollins. And if he is meant to be getting a push, this isn't the way to be doing it. He should be winning his matches 1, 2, 3 pinfalls or submissions.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be WWE a rubber match, you know. And I think the match wasn't maybe as good as obviously the WrestleMania match, but I'm enjoying Rollins' character work a lot more at this moment in time, and even more than Cesaro at this point. Simon, what's your score out of 5? What were your thoughts?
I really enjoyed this match, so I've gone exactly the same as the first match, 3.5. The two notes that I did make that we haven't really discussed. So Michael Cole at one point says that Rollins' stomp cost Cesaro days of his career. That's not a big thing when he works week to week anyway. And also Cesaro having the sharpshooter and the crossface in his arsenal seems like he's a creator wrestler that's just gone, I'll have the best moves from every single person. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one, 3.5 stars.
Chris, what were you scoring it?
It was a perfectly fine match, but I've given it slightly less than Si. I've given it 3 stars just because it was workmanlike, but it was nothing spectacular.
Okay, the nice WNR. Jaxie, do you want to start us off?
Yep. I think I'm gonna agree with Chris on this and go with 3. Just because I think that the ending for me really did let it down because I just kind of came out with questions, about as to where things are going to go for Cesaro at this point, and I'm a huge fan of Cesaro's. So, yeah, I'm going to give it a 3.
I'm going to give it a 3 3/4 because when you get these two guys in the ring, it's just good. Like I said, it would add more if it meant something, even if it was a number one contendership match or something like that, as opposed to just kind of this is going to continue a feud. Because, like I said, with WWE, I think they think fans watch the match and go, "I want to see this match 6 more times in the next month." That's what I want. So, I mean, that must be their thinking of it.
Well, that's why it confused me with Cyber saying Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens was his pick of the night. I was like, yeah, that was mine too, 87 matches ago.
Well, prediction-wise, Select Match Pod went Cesaro and the WNR went Seth Rollins. 2-1 Team WNR, but now we know that the results were thrown anyway.
Max bitching.
Yeah, it
match
cheapens
fixing.
it.
Easy for me to say.
I tell you what, I talking about betting. I had a look on the Sky betting odds for a lot of the matches, just because I was curious. Because ever since Lesnar beat the Undertaker at 1,000 to 1 or wherever it were, I like to have a look just to see if anything jumps out at me. You could not have got more odds on for every result of these matches on Sky Bet.
Really?
Either it's just that predictable, or they're just feeding them the odds and you're going, yeah, this is going to happen. Because for this one, I think for Rollins, for this one for Rollins to win, I think you're having to put on about £14 to get a pound back, and it's just like, yeah, that's not worth my money.
Yeah.
Well, we see Cole McAfee speaking at ringside, McAfee playing out that Money in the Bank course is taking place in front of fans. Do you think people will tell McAfee to sit down once they're back in the arena? Because that would really annoy me if I couldn't see the action because he's like, Pat, just sit down, mate. All right, like. Anyway, and then
It'll be Otto in the Otto at the Rock gig. Sit down, you're ruining it for everyone.
And then we see the kickoff panel, which no one cares about. And then we get a video package setting up Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler. Yes, the match Chris is looking forward to more than anything else in the
Here we go.
This is dream match. How we got here. What are your thoughts on Lily then and to this point up until this matchup?
Right. This is difficult because while I appreciate that the actual storyline and what they've done is not to everyone's taste, for a die-hard horror fan such as myself and a die-hard Alexa Bliss fan, this ticks all of the boxes. When they paired it with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend originally, it looked like they were just using it to prop up The Fiend and keep that going a little while longer. I don't think anyone could have predicted how well Bliss carries this on without Wyatt alongside her. I don't think anyone knew how good, not only in the ring, but how good a performer and actress Alexa Bliss actually is when it comes to pulling off this kind of role. So, as I say, people may think it's cheesy. They may hate the fact it has nothing to do with wrestling whatsoever at times. But for me, this is... I'm happy Give me Rollins, Cesaro, and Sane, Owens. That's great. I can appreciate the wrestling then, but give me something alongside them that I'm absolutely going to enjoy. Just the bonkers nature of what they're doing.
I definitely see your point there. Simon or Jaxie, do you think this is just a step too far? Or do you think there's a kind of an end game to it, so to speak?
So at the moment, it feels like, for me, Alexa Bliss is in a bit of a holding pattern until The Fiend comes back. There's been rumours about why The Fiend is away, and I don't really want to get into them, but I think, I just can't see what's going to happen with Bliss until The Fiend comes back. The worst thing about the build for this was the Lily appearing in the mirror, and it was a throwback to Hogan versus Warrior in WCW, where Warrior just appeared in the mirror, Hogan turns around, then he's not there anymore, and that was quite cringy. I know what Chris is saying with it's nice to have something completely different, and being a horror fan as he is, it ticks his boxes, but it seems to be dragging a little at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit in amongst both of your comments there, because I am a very huge horror fan myself, especially a horror gamer. I love everything like Resident Evil and everything like that. So everything to do with The Fiend, even when Alexa first joined The Fiend, has been absolutely great. I feel like my issue is more of like a biased issue towards Shayna, because I am a huge fan of Shayna, and I absolutely loved her dominant entry into sort of the main roster when it came to Elimination Chamber. She took out everyone. And so this is
this a good chance to plug our Elimination Chamber series? Sorry to jump over you.
It's really
as Chris mentioned, our next match that we're covering is.
I got straight into it at the start. We were plugging away with the Elimination Chamber series that we're doing next. Don't worry, I'm a PR machine when I come on these things.
It's fine. It's
all
fine.
over
Don't like I say, it's not an issue. And of course, Elimination Chamber pay-per-view was reviewed by Jaxie and myself. If you want to go back to the WNR library as well, so
yeah, definitely. Nice. You will probably hear half of the comments that I'm bringing up here about how dominant Shayna came across, how much of a strong contender she looked at, either Becky at the time, or I forget who it was on SmackDown who was champion at the time, but Shayna was in such a good position, and to see how far in my eyes she's dropped, and that's not because of Alexa Bliss, but more the storyline with this being about a doll and everything like that. Just to have Shayna involved in this, I have been very disappointed, because this is not what I saw going for her. Shayna is an absolute beast, and they're just really, in my opinion, not using her in the best way they could be. So I do think that I was disappointed in the match, but it's not because of I don't enjoy both women. I still think the Alexa Bliss sort of like creepiness character works, and I would like to see what's going to kind of come up of this. I know that Nikki Cross is potentially going to get involved in trying to sort her out, maybe, who knows. And even if The Fiend comes back, I'd love to see kind of what other creative input that they could both have with each other. However, I just need this with Shayna to be over, because I need Shayna to actually cut off Nia and Reginald, and I need her to go back to the dominant Shayna that she was. And I'd like to have Marina and Jasmine Duke back by her side, like it was in NXT. Can we have that, please?
I think Shavir's been released, but like I said, maybe she should come back at some point.
I know, but please.
But Baszler might win this match. You just don't know, so we'll find out. It's so close. We will
find out.
Well, Baszler took the fight to Bliss from the opening bell. The goddess responded with laughter, smiles, and further mind games. Baszler doubled down, targeting the left arm of opponent with a sickening stomp, only for Bliss to menacingly laugh it off. Bliss fought back, hypnotised Nia Jax into slapping Reginald. Jaxie, of course, would have done it anyway, and escaped the Kirifuji clutch and delivered Sister Abigail DDT to Baszler. She followed with Twisted Bliss for the win. Chris, what were your thoughts on this?
It was, I was really looking forward to this, but it wasn't amazing. It was perfectly fine with what they did with, Alexa Bliss doing all the stuff she normally does it absolutely brilliantly. The little spider crawl across the ring, brilliant. Nia Jax, I'm impressed that Nia Jax had a time in that well with Alexa Bliss when she hit Reginald. They were absolutely simpatico.
Yeah.
As I say, I understand as well with Baszler, she's being wasted in this because, as I say, I could watch Bliss just pick off anyone from the undercard and just go through absolute nobodies rather than actually using someone of Baszler's quality at this point. As I say, did everything I was looking for it to do, but that's it. It was no Randy Orton Bliss, let's say that.
Simon, anything to add to that? Or?
No, I think the only other thing that I'd add with Bliss using mind control on Nia Jax is once you bring mind control into it, you're slightly overpowered and you can literally do anything you want.
Yeah, she's literally the new Undertaker with added hypnosis. Like, that's kind of what you want. The only bright...
The only other thing, sorry, I was going to say, the only other thing, like, what's next for Alexa Bliss? Because surely this is going to be the end of the Baszler feud now. So unless The Fiend is going to return imminently, I'm just no idea what's going to be next for Alexa Bliss.
No, but I mean, the only bright side out of Bliss, and of course the kickoff match as well, if you include it, out of the 7 matches, 4 of them were women's, and there was kind of no big deal about this made. Because I know there's a lot of talk about Evolution pay-per-view, and of course NWA doing their own women's pay-per-view, but I think this just shows you that they make this and have like 4 women's matches, and it's accepted, which is fantastic considering where it was kind of back in the day to where it is now as well.
Agreed. It would just be nice if they actually put the effort in to create an actual decent storyline around it, rather than just kind of more focusing on just kind of randomly putting them together. But I do agree that, you know, there's definitely spacing out and having a lot more female matches, but just make us care about them more, you know?
Yeah, I think. Are you going to score this 5 out of 5 then?
You're having a laugh. No, I want to hear Chris's score first. Let's go with Chris's score.
This for me, as much as I was looking forward to it, is probably the weakest match on the card. Still, I'd say it does everything that I wanted it to, but not enough. As I say, it was fine. Could have done a lot more. Alexa Bliss is far more talented than she showed here. I'm only giving this one 2.5, which absolutely kills me.
Simon, what are you going to score it?
I'm going 1.5.
Oh, Simon, that's low.
Go on, Jaxie.
Sorry, were you?
Yeah, well, I thought I was actually rating it. I thought I was going to rate it bad because I was going to rate it at 2, but Simon went 1.
I actually wrote down 1.75, but as we were talking about it, it's dropped to a quarter in my mind. So.
I've done that good a job of selling it to you. I've locked off quarter of the staff in the match.
Do you know what?
You are the PR master there, Chris.
I thought this was very similar to Steamboat and Flair. I actually really, really enjoyed this one. No, I'm actually going to give this a 2.5 out of 5 as well, because it was what it was. When hypnosis is involved, really, you can't really say much else. Prediction-wise, we both went Bliss, so it's 3-2. Poll-wise, 85% to Alexa Bliss. And we see McIntyre shown backstage. And then we go on to Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. So, Simon, this is the match you're most looking forward to. How did you get here? What was your thought on the feud? And why were you looking forward to this match so much?
Well, the main reason I was looking forward to it is because of the work they've done together in the past. I know it's an overused feud that they go back to time and time again when there's almost nothing else, but that was the main reason I was looking forward to this one. How we got here, so Sami Zayn has for months now been talking about the conspiracies that are, I can't wait to see the documentary that's coming out about it, if it ever actually airs, which I'm sure it won't, but yeah, so he wanted Kevin Owens to back him up. Kevin Owens didn't agree, so he's been considered a co-conspirator, or rat, as Pat McAfee calls him later on, which I wasn't a huge fan of. But yeah, so this was set up, and just I think it was a SmackDown before where Kevin Owens took 2 Nigerian nail, essentially Umaga's thumb from back in the day, from Assis, who's obviously working with completely forgotten his name.
Apollo Crews.
Apollo Crews, yeah. What I would say about that, the story of having a giant bodyguard aligned with someone would be really good if it was original and hadn't happened 2 months ago with Omar and AJ Styles.
I think this is the thing. And how many big men with the kind of little guys, so to speak, have actually been a success? And this is that I think me and Jax talked about kind of a couple of months ago, was that it doesn't work. Like, they kind of just, whoever's by their side of whatever superstar, we've seen it with tag teams as well. Oh, that's a 3-man unit now. And then it'll just get released or just disappear and it won't matter. Like, Split doesn't, you know.
Yes,
was the last time
it's
it
not
worked.
quite Diesel and Shawn Michaels, is it?
That's like the last time this worked, weren't it? Yeah.
It's just like, I appreciate the idea, but I don't think it's going to get there, you know. But
I like the fact we're recycling ideas from 25 years ago. I'm just waiting now for Papa Shango to turn back up in a minute. We'll be good to go.
Well, you say that we had hypnosis in the last match. Yeah.
Mate, as long as we don't have anyone blacking up, it's fine. I'm all right.
Yep.
All right, so we start off with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn then, and Strong and through Zayn about in the ring and out, including a lovely flip bump by Zayn. Zayn really, I watch him sometimes and go, that's just really nice what you're doing. But we see KO still reeling from, of course, the Nigerian nail that he had, was on the defensive through the early portion after Zayn took advantage. Owens nursed his arm, speculated to be a shoulder or wrist injury. I love it when they go, he's hyperextended it. It takes me back. It's just like, I've never heard it anywhere else apart from wrestling. And you know what about a one-armed man in a fist fight? But he managed to come back, missed a swanton off the apron, some reversed a stunner, but wasn't so lucky on the outside. Both men beat the count, then each other in the centre of the ring, busting Zayn's mouth. That was really cool. And then Sami used his founded, sprinted across the ring, delivered a haluva kick for the victory. And afterwards, Zayn laughed while talking about karma, going to the announce table and spitting some blood on the page of Cole's notes, which made Chris happy. And that Zayn held in his hand, and afterwards saying he didn't believe him. So, Simon, what were your thoughts on this matchup?
As I say, thoroughly enjoyed it. Whether they needed the story of the neck injury or throat injury going into it, I'm not quite sure. I guess that's more because since the pay-per-view, Kevin Owens has come out and said that he's going to take some time away, right?
Yeah, it looks like he's going to...
So, yeah, I think that was the reason to... Yeah, so I think that was the reason to sort of play the injury angle. But these two just know each other so well. The chemistry they have is incredible, and I could watch them for days. And as you say, the selling, particularly of the Irish whips at the start of the match from Sami Zayn, sort of bouncing off the turnbuckle and flipping into the ring, it was insane.
It really, really was nice. Zayn and Owens will fight forever. But, I mean, I had a crazy thought. Will they both get like a kind of WrestleMania 20 moment? Because I'm not saying the similarities, but if you look at, Guerrero and Benoit as they were, and so will they get the kind of respect, the kind of workhorse? And I see a comparable there between the two. Do you think Zayn and Owens will get the credit? I mean, I'll ask Jaxie, I'll ask you. Do you think they will get the credit that I think they deserve to have that kind of moment in the spotlight?
I mean, I have to agree with you there. I absolutely enjoy both of these wrestlers in the ring. They could fight for years on end, and I probably wouldn't get bored. I'd actually still enjoy every single match. However, I'm not sure whether or not they will get the opportunity to sort of have that moment to shine at the same time. I think that they both will have their time to shine like that. But I'm not sure whether or not it will be around the same time. There's too many other wrestlers that are sort of involved and others that kind of probably deserve it just as much. So I don't know if they might have gone past their moment to have kind of both been champions alongside one another.
What would be classic Owens is if they had the moment and he turned on him. That would be such Kevin.
Oh my
Owens
God!
moment.
If they did, that would be great. That would be great if they could do that.
It's NXT all over.
I mean,
again,
it's not.
It?
I mean, it's not like they.
Basically.
I mean, for people you've worried that they'd missed their spot. I mean, Kofi Kingston showed that it can be done. WWE, even if it seems that you've been there that long, that your moment has come and passed to get that big WrestleMania moment and that big push, it can happen. Whether it'll happen for both of them at the same time, probably unlikely. They're going to, because they'd have to run similar storylines to have them both go that way. So probably not both, but one of them, yes, could see it happening.
I could see it, I could see both having the opportunity, but it will. I just see it more happening at different times.
Right, so we move on to scores then of this matchup. And Chris, what are you going to give Owens and Zayn out of 5?
I feel with my scores, I'm in the same holding pattern as Zayn and Rollins are against Zayn and Owens are against each other. It's a perfectly good match. You wouldn't expect anything less from these two, but it's still only a 3-star match for myself.
Simon?
3.5 stars. I thought you were going to give it exactly the same holding pattern as in the same score that you've given the other matches, but that's what I'm doing.
Jaxie?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3.5. It was a really enjoyable match.
I am going to give it a... bloody hell, I gave it a 4. I must have really enjoyed it at the time. So there you go. See, imagine if there's something to fight over, eh? Predictions, we both went Owens, so it's 3-2 still for the WNR. Poll-wise, Owens got 67%. And then we see, obviously, highlights of SmackDown with Reigns beat Mysterio. And then we get a Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley promo leading to our next match for the Raw Women's Championship, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. So, Jaxie, you're a huge fan of Charlotte. Why don't you tell Select Match Pod how much you like her and how much you've enjoyed this build-up to this Women's Championship match?
I mean, yeah, you could argue, I suppose people can argue that there's been build-up since WrestleMania about them going at it just one-on-one or whatever. But, I mean, yeah, I do have a bit of an issue with Charlotte always being in the title picture. So for me, I just felt like, again, this was another excuse just to have Charlotte Flair in the title picture because she wasn't pinned, was she? Before, was that her?
No, it was Rhea pinned Asuka to keep the championship. So that was our argument. Yeah.
So I think this is where the argument came from, which again to me was a real pointless reason as to why they should be facing off against each other again. And I know that they were kind of bringing up things about how Rhea lost the NXT title to her and she wanted to sort of pay her back for that. But it's kind of, for me, it was kind of like blah, blah, blah. So I wasn't overall hyped for this match. I don't really feel like there was that much of a story going into it. But then again, I also felt like it was like purposely done that way because the whole main story of it was, oh, well, I wasn't pinned at my WrestleMania.
I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because, Charlotte is the one that gets opportunities, but as you say, she always delivers in kind of big matches as well. I mean, Simon, what's your thoughts on Charlotte? Is it a case of just like the John Cena of the women's division?
I think I'm probably somewhere between the two of you. So I do agree. It's quite annoying, and I'm sure it would be for the other women on the roster that Charlotte is constantly around the title picture. But as you say, she doesn't have particularly bad matches ever, really, does she? So there's probably a reason for it. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with Andrade moving across to AEW, how she's going to react to that in a few months' time. I can see Charlotte moving across and almost WWE having to really break the bank to try and keep her.
Well, Charlotte made some interesting comments about Andrade leaving. She said, I'm really happy that he's gone to kind of learn English and, he's got the confidence to go out and try other things. And, of course, maybe, he'll come back at a certain point. And I think with WWE, like Charlotte is their biggest star they've got. I mean, Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, but they kind of put the bank in. I'll be very surprised if they let her slip away. But then again, it would be good because, of course, Ric Flair was known to jump ship at a point during the time. So maybe it's written in the stars.
Ric Flair also went out of WWE. Just by the way, one of the greatest televised matches of all time against Mr. Perfect with the Loser Leaves Raw match. One of my favourites of all time, that one. You love Perfect.
Well, I'll tell you what was maybe not perfect, but quite good was the Rhea Ripley Charlotte Flair match. So we're going to get right into it. We see Flair cheaply using the women's title belt before the bell to distract Ripley. Usually you would hit the opponent over the head with it, but instead just threw it in her general direction, which I suppose pissed her off anyway. She targeted the knee of Ripley, absorbed every burst of offense and Nightmare mustered. Natural selection couldn't get the job done. Neither could a picture-perfect standing moonsault. Ripley fought back low and the Riptide was hit, but too close to the ropes. The Queen caught her with a drop kick to the knee that sent her to the ring steps. Spear in a figure four followed, but the champ fought the pain. The Nightmare then used a piece of the announce table, yes, a piece of the announce table, to blast Flair, drawing a disqualification. I mean, a DQ for that. I mean, come on. And afterwards, Ripley and Flair returned to the ring and fought. Ripley put Flair down with a Riptide finisher. Ripley limped to ringside, got a belt, and headed up the stage. She turned and told Flair she was only doing what Flair did to her. Chris, what were your thoughts on the match and the post-match shenanigans?
The actual match itself, really enjoyed it. As you say, you don't get a bad Charlotte Flair match. She's there for a reason, even though I agree with Roxy that it annoys me how much she's around the main title picture. But that's be as it is. She's still great in the ring. It's just more the finish that annoyed me there. Because are we really setting up that she got that frustrated and she's having to use the announce table and getting herself disqualified out of sheer frustration, but going, yeah, it's just what Charlotte Flair would do. It's just the laziest kind of writing to justify the fact that the ending makes no sense and they don't know what they're doing with this feud at the moment.
I would completely agree. Like I say, of course we need another match. You know, that's what they're thinking. Like, we need another 4 weeks of build-up. Is exactly what we've seen before. But it was good until the finish. And it's crazy, Ripley is only 24. Jaxie, what were your thoughts? Because like I said, Charlotte it was a great performance by both women, though, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, I have to openly say, you know, I really enjoyed the match itself. I thought it was really good. Again, though, really disappointed in the ending. And I'm more disappointed because how many times do we see people get powerbombed into that announcer's desk or stunnered on top of it, and now Rhea just flipped a piece of it that's just the top part at Charlotte and she got DQ'd for it. Oh, come on, fuck off. Come on. I'm sorry. That was my response to watching the ending of that match. It was just, oh, fuck off. That is like the laziest writing ever. I can't even take it. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that Seth Rollins was powerbombed into the announcer's desk just before or something. I can't.
I hope they push it to its logical conclusion, like when you had in WCW where you got disqualified for throwing someone over the top rope. I'm hoping just a closed fist, a closed line. No, that's too high. Disqualification. You're going to really hurt someone in one of these days. Anything slightly dangerous, anything that isn't an open hand slap or a grapple, chuck them out, disqualified.
Yeah, that's how it should be, really, because that's the only way they can really make up for the fact that Rhea Ripley got disqualified for this.
With commentators, with Pat McAfee overselling it, going, "Oh my God, he just punched him!" Like, you know, like just massive.
Yep.
So, Simon, what were your thoughts and what's your score out of 5 for the match?
Really enjoyed it. I've got nothing to add about the finish because you've covered it perfectly. The only thing that slightly annoys me is they really built this up as the sort of them clashing and finally coming together, and they've almost sold it as this is the defining match, but then there's clearly going to be another one because of that. So I've given it 3 stars. It would have been higher, but for the finish.
Great. Chris, what are you going to score that match out of 5?
Yeah, I completely agree with Si there. As I say, I'd have given it, if it hadn't been for that finish, it would have got 3.5. But that finish happened, so it's got 3 from me.
Jaxie?
Yeah, I was really harsh on this one. It really disappointed me with how things went down from the match at the end of the match. So I gave it a 2.5. Yep.
Well, I gave it
not a 1.
No. Hey, we don't throw shade in predictions, like whatever. Because my score, you're going to go like, what the fuck? 3 3/4 out of 5 for me, because it worked. And Charlotte is a top level performer. Ripley is. They just need to sort out the finishes, and it will be fine. Like it's fine. Can we
determine? Was this meant to be like some sort of heel turn, and heel and face turn, or is that what they were indicating that there was going to be? Ripley's
been straddling that line for she turned heel when she went to face Asuka at Mania, and then kind of been in this no man land now, or no woman land, sorry. Of this kind of not sure if she's a heel or face, and all we've learned about her is that she's a nightmare. And it's like we kind of need to develop it a little bit more, motivations and stuff like. At least with Charlotte, we know what motivates her. And I think this is the thing sometimes where I think
Charlotte does what Charlotte wants.
It's not just that she's a queen; she's got the family legacy to live up to. Do you know what I mean? You know, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas with Ripley, I just feel.
Like I said, I just don't know if I was particularly interested in seeing like another match between them, but we know we're going to get it now.
What annoyed me was that we saw a GIF was posted to Twitter that showed Flair missing a handful of kicks for the caption from woo to whoops, an embarrassing display from the 335 champion. And what the user may, and many others didn't really realise, however, is that there were missed kicks were a direct jab at Ripley when she left crawling away anyway. And it was, in fact, Charlotte mocking her. Which, again, I'm not going to have a go at the base audience of the listeners and the people on Twitter, but this really does piss me off sometimes, where you'd rather just try and have a go rather than actually kind of watching the product. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
don't listen to our podcast.
I didn't know about that. I really didn't see it. I didn't see that GIF at all, so I don't really know what to say about that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. We're going to get into the mystery hand in the main event as well. So there was a couple of things like that. Prediction-wise, we both went Ripley. So it's 4-3. Locked again, but it could all change in the main event. We just don't know. Poll-wise, Ripley, 68%. And then the main event, Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre in a Hell in a Cell match for the WWE Championship. Called McIntyre can't challenge Lashley for the title again if he loses. Chris, I'll go to you. What have you thought of Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre? Because I've got to tell you, I was heartbroken. I mean, Jax will tell you, I was heartbroken at WrestleMania when Drew lost.
Yeah, I really didn't see it coming. I thought he was going to do it, keep it going. But, you know what? Fair play there, taking a punt on Lashley. And at the moment, he's with MVP by his side. He's doing a decent enough job. We know he's not the best talker, but we know he can do it in the ring. He's a big, powerful guy. Who doesn't want to see him throwing people around the ring at various points? And as long as we've got MVP there, being his mouthpiece and actually keeping us interested in anything Lashley does, then I'm okay with him for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Bobby and Drew, they just click. And I don't think the main event was any different. Watching them throw each other around is a joy, especially how big they are. You know, you talk about two big guys fighting. That's what you want to see. You know, it's the opposite of Goldberg and Lesnar at WrestleMania 20. Again, like, not bringing that event up, but you know, it's what we kind of want to what we had at that point. And then weapons were introduced. And I was going to ask you guys, because obviously, you know, you look at different match types. Do we need weapons in every cell match? Surely the gimmick is a Hell in a Cell match, or do you need it because it is Hell? I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? Simon, what about you? Do you think we need it?
I'm glad you mentioned it because it almost feels like a Hell in a Cell is an excuse now to have a hardcore match. They should be different things. You don't necessarily need to have weapons just because it's a cell match. It should be its own thing. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. I guess the reason they do it is because they're not going to have people thrown. Have people bleeding or thrown off or through the cell in the same way as you had years ago.
It depends how they use them. If they use the torment, then they can really add to it. It was the Orton Jeff Hardy screwdriver one where he has it in his through the ear piercing. There's absolutely nothing to Hardy because it's all cartilage. You don't feel it. Hasn't felt a thing. Well, Hardy hasn't felt a thing for 20 years, but that's not. But it just adds to it because it's not weapons for weapons' sake. It's something that's really gnarly and torments him, adding to that Hell in a Cell kind of thing. If they do it that way, it adds a lot. But yeah, just using it as an excuse to throw a hardcore match in there is serving nobody well.
No, I mean, and I wonder how much time. And I obviously watched the England game yesterday, and they always say in a game of football that the ball's in play 60 minutes out of the 90. And I wonder how much time in a wrestling match. I nearly did it with my stopwatch of how much time is taken going underneath the ring. And I don't care if they go straight to the spot because obviously they've planned it before. But getting a chair or throwing a chair, setting up a table, setting up a ladder, it must be like 10 minutes out of the entire match just. Construction of stuff and everything like that. And it's the thing. You go, oh, you're going to come back to that later, and you've just set it up. Like,
I was going to say, you should listen to our Jeff Hardy Abyss TNA tables, ladders, and chairs match. TLC match when there is no time planning, setting anything up. I
always enjoy the Full Metal Mayhem because they made the excuse just to. It's a literal thing, shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. But anyway, we get on to the main event and we see the Almighty utilise MVP's walking cane as a weapon while McIntyre shook off his effects and delivered a spine-shattering air raid crash on the ring steps. And the cut or mark on arm of Bobby looked actually really, really nasty. And then we see the Scott followed with a reverse Alabama slam, driving his opponent face first into a steel chair. Now, I don't care even if you don't like WWE. If you can't take joy in watching a man Bobby Lashley size getting Alabama slammed into a steel chair face first, then you ain't a wrestling fan. That's all I'm saying. He escaped a desperate hurt lock attempt and downed the champ for a 2 count. Lashley answered by shoving the stairs in the challenger, which drove him into the cage, looking like a Terminator, just squashing his face up against that cage wall. Lashley then took control. We got a payback from the chair from earlier. I always like that in matches where you see someone get hit with a kendo stick or a chair. You know it's coming back to him as well. Get a referee bump, of course, because it's Hell in a Cell. And then they unlocking the door, entering the structure only for MVP to follow and break up a pinfall attempt after a Claymore, but now locked in the cage with a vengeful babyface. He ate a Claymore kick of his own. Drew reversed a hurt lock by sending both men back through a table. Lashley then chokes down McIntyre from the apron through a table at ringside. Mystery hand popped up. More of that in a second. And then MVP popped up later in the match, holding McIntyre by the foot, allowing Lashley to score a cheap, yes, win. So, thoughts on that? Jaxie, what did you think of the main event at Hell in a Cell?
I mean, I was really excited for it. I enjoyed both Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre in the ring. And I just thought, if you're going to put anyone into a Hell in a Cell with Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre was the right way to go. So I was really looking forward to this. And I think overall the match itself was really great. Both men took some real brutal bumps that really did kind of have you wincing. That again, I don't really want to be a stickler because I do think that when roll-up pins are done right, they're really great. They build such great tension because you just think, that wasn't meant to happen. But oh my gosh, 2 roll-up pins in this pay-per-view, it really had me pissed off. I've got to admit. The likes of Bobby Lashley rolling up, Drew McIntyre, these 2 big men that were giving it their all in the ring, and you just ended it in a roll-up pin. I was so disappointed.
But yeah,
especially when you've got the DQ finish as well.
Exactly. Straight before that was the DQ finish.
But this is the problem of not having finishes properly rather than DQ.
Yeah.
But I think with McIntyre, it's like if he'd have lost clean like he did at Mania, then he's kind of, that's him done. At least now he can still say,
but he was supposed to be done anyway. He was supposed to be done anyway because he's not allowed to sort of go for that belt again whilst Bobby Lashley has it. So there was no need for them to do it as a roll-up pin.
But I feel like with John Cena or someone like that, how many clean pinfalls did he take? And I think with McIntyre, maybe with that, like I said, the climb for McIntyre starts again. Why the fuck did he pick a Hell in a Cell match when he lost his WWE Championship in a Hell in a Cell match? I will never understand it. Like, I don't understand. Simon, what did you think of the match and everything that happened? And did you think it was the right result? Because, I could argue.
I really enjoyed the match. I thought Drew dominated more than I was anticipating. I thought it was going to be more evenly booked, and I guess that makes sense if you're going to do a roll-up finish. But it was so impressive to see a man Bobby Lashley's size being thrown around the ring, like belly-to-belly suplexed overhead and that sort of thing. That was very impressive. The roll-up sort of protects Drew, but if he's now not going to be able to face Bobby Lashley for the title, where is he? What's next for him? What I actually predict is that he's probably going to get, because there is talk of the draft going to be around SummerSlam. So I think what's going to happen, he's going to be drafted to SmackDown and then going to feud with Reigns, partly because of the fact that Reigns is slowly running out of top guys to go through on SmackDown, but also they clicked together so well when they had the Survivor Series match, champion versus champion.
Agreed. I would actually be happy with.
Yeah, but
between them.
I can understand it, but for me personally, it's like I want McIntyre to kind of do well again. I think the backlash, if he goes against Reigns and they decide McIntyre's going to be the guy that beats Roman, there's going to be a lot of people go, McIntyre getting another chance, but it could have been Big E, it could have been, Kevin Owens, it could have been whoever.
Yeah, but I don't feel like that could. I feel like he still needs to be given that chance because he kind of got it during the pandemic, and I don't feel like anyone was satisfied for Drew McIntyre at that point because of he should have been able to have won it in front of a real crowd.
When's Elimination Chamber coming up? Coming up soon. So
yeah, they've changed it this year, haven't they?
Yeah, they did because it used to be before WrestleMania. Now
Yeah, used to be. Yeah, because obviously because it ran the Undertaker. Michaels ran through Elimination Chamber to set that up. But as I say, if there's a stipulation with McIntyre not able to face Lashley while he's champion, well, what happens if McIntyre does win Elimination Chamber? There's your nice little segue and excuse to be able to get him to actually have that match again against Lashley.
Or what happens if he wins the Money at the Bank? Like the next pay-per-view, you've got two contracting contracts. The other thing I forgot to mention it in the build-up to the match, but what didn't really make much sense was Kofi and Drew was a one-on-one match to decide the number one contender. So why was there then a negotiation around, well, if you lose, you never get another shot? It didn't make much sort of storyline sense when they'd already had a one-on-one match. And then the only other thing to mention about Bobby Lashley is I'll never get fully behind him because he'll always be the man that sided with Donald Trump to make Vince McMahon shave his hair.
Right. Okay, a couple of things about that. First off, with the story on Raw, with the contract signing, was the fact that Lashley wanted McIntyre this to be his last opportunity. Even though he had the opportunity, he wouldn't have signed the contract without it. Which, again, unless you're watching 3 hours of Raw, they're not going to kind of bring that back up either, you know. But I just feel with like McIntyre, I'm worried that he's not on Roman Reigns' level. I've seen this with wrestlers in the past where if you don't get that title opportunity again or you keep losing, then you're just going to be dropped down. It would be like, oh, okay, you're a kind of heel mid-carder. And next year at WrestleMania, it's going to be Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre for the United States Championship, you know?
Yeah.
I think they have built Bobby Lashley up as a main event talent. And I think this year with WWE, I think they deserve a little bit of credit because you look at where he was at the start of the year till now, and I think he is a guy that can be mixing in the main event for years to come.
Definitely agree with that.
So anyway, talk about mystery hand. And WWE took some heat from fans on social media, of course, because you saw a hand from a crew member who was hiding under the ring, and he was caught on camera during the Hell in a Cell. He was coming to, after the chokeslam off the apron, we see him kind of put the table in the way because McIntyre landed on a crash pad instead of a table. And a lot of people have had a problem with this, but we've seen it before in other wrestling companies. And while McIntyre may have taken a softer bump, you look at the pictures that he took of his battle wounds during the Hell in a Cell, it was crazy. Did anybody else see the mystery hand? And did it piss anybody else off as much as it did everybody else on Twitter?
I didn't see this.
No.
I saw it, but only because I'd seen things about it on Twitter before. So I was sort of looking out for it as the spot happened. But it's obvious they're setting up the new Raw Anonymous GM, right?
It's going to be the thing from Adam's family.
Gosh. Oh,
Is that hand that Mae Young gave birth to? It's back.
No.
And this time it's personal.
Alexa Bliss used her dark powers to resurrect it.
I often wonder why we're not booking WWE programming, but maybe that's for the best.
Take my money. That's all I'm saying. All right, so scores for the main event. Chris, what are you going to score that out of 5?
I am giving it a very solid 3.5.
Simon?
So if it was a clean finish, I think this would have been higher, but I've given it 4 stars.
Jaxie?
Yeah, I gave it a 3.5 because of that. Yeah, but the match itself, it was really good up until that roll-up pin.
I don't care about the roll-up pinners, but I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
But I do.
I know you do. That's the whole point.
I feel like they've overused it. I really would actually be behind some of these bigger people winning it, as they said with Seth, even using that type of tactic. If it wasn't so frequently used, that's my only.
Well, it'd be fair to say. So we look back on Hell in a Cell, and of course, prediction-wise for that, we both went Lashley for final scores 5-4 to the WNR, and hopefully next time we ever do it. It can be a fair fight, maybe, between us and Select Match Pod. Poll-wise, Lashley, 61% of the vote. So before we get our overall scores, our main or match of the nights. Now, I've got all the scores in front of me. So my match of the night was obviously the main event. The same with you, Simon, as well. Jaxie, your match was Belair versus Bayley. You happy with that?
Yep, that's definitely what I would stick with.
And Chris, you've got 2 scores, the main event and the Blair. So which one are you going to pick out the 2 for your match of the night?
I think Bailey Belair was my match of the night.
I think that would be fair to say. Another thing we do as well now is MVP, who was the best person or who's impressed you most throughout the night. And I've got to say Sami Zayn, because in that matchup, the way he was moving, and he can play, and I didn't really mention it then, but the face he was in NXT compared to this piece of shit heel he is now is completely different, and not many wrestlers can do that, and he can still fly and still be annoying. So he's my MVP. Jaxie, who are you going to give it to?
I'm gonna. Do you know what? I'm gonna give it to Drew McIntyre. I feel like he took quite a few big spots from Bobby in that match that looked really, really painful. So I'm gonna give that to him. And I also feel like he was done dirty on that roll-up pin. So I feel like he worked really hard for that match still. So I'm gonna go with Drew.
Fair enough. Simon, who's your MVP? Who impressed you most tonight?
So very similar. I'm going to go Bobby Lashley for almost exactly the same reasons, because Bobby Lashley is an incredibly talented athlete. One thing that I have had question marks about him in the past around is how good is he at selling, which is clearly an important part of being a top star, a top wrestler. And I thought he sold for Drew really well here, so I'm going to go Bobby Lashley as MVP. Although obviously a shout out to the hand.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Chris, who's your MVP?
In a throwback to last year's Hell in a Cell, Bailey is my MVP again. So we've had a couple of Hell in a Cell matches with her now, and she's done nothing but look absolutely top notch in both of them. For her heel work, is among the best in the company for the last couple of years.
Yeah,
so she still gets my vote again for telling Michael Cole to shut up as well. So that's bonus point.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Right, so now we've got overall rating. Chris, I finished with you just a second ago, so I'll start again. What's your score out of 10 for this entire pay-per-view?
Out of 10, I am giving it a 6. I think a 6.5, I think, is a fair rating. I say I wasn't any point bored during it, but everything felt a bit not directionless or without any kind of great stakes. So yeah, 6.5 I think is about right.
Fair enough. Simon, what are you going to score it?
So I really enjoyed it. It did really feel like a bit of a B pay-per-view though, with things like cut into the panel partway through the show, so many ad breaks, not having Reigns and Mysterio on the cards. But I still, none of the matches I thought were particularly bad, like bad or boring. But so I'm slightly torn. I'm gonna go 7, I think.
And Jaxie, what are you gonna score it?
Yeah, I have to agree with both the comments. So I think overall, I'm going to give it a 6.5, and I feel like it would have been higher if it wasn't for the really odd DQ finish and the roll up pin finishes for 2 matches on a pay-per-view. I feel like that's what also could have made it more of a B type pay-per-view because of those finishers, and we need to just kind of establish finishers again.
I think the thing is with a pay-per-view, and especially with a show, if you're going to spend money or not, is what did you miss? If you didn't watch it live or you didn't catch up on it, what have you missed? And the nice answer would be not a lot, really, on this, because it's built up towards rematches, basically. Yes, Lashley got the kind of victory, but as you said, it kind of didn't pay off in the end. I'm still going to give it an 8.25 because there are, and I think my basis off a 10 rating as well, compared to maybe other people, is there is complete shit out there, and I think this is a lot better than maybe I'm going to give it credit for what it is, because like I said, I was entertained for 3 hours. The matches were good. There was nothing I was kind of offended with anyway, so I think that's fair enough for us all. Finally, we asked everybody on Twitter what their scores, or not their scores even, or what they thought and how they graded it. Great got 8%, Awesome got 12%, Good got 28%, and Okay 52%. So it was an okay pay-per-view in the end. And I think with our 4 scores, that kind of sums it all up. So that is it. The end of the Thunderdome and the end of the show. And don't forget, of course, all social media, Twitter at the WNR Podcast. I'm at the WNRJR. We have been joined by the fantastic Chris and Simon for the Select Match Pod. Now plug away, son. So if you want, whatever you got, do it now.
Yeah, so obviously we're on our own podcast is across all platforms, Spotify, iTunes, the whole deal. We've just finished our TLC series. We could have guessed what the best TLC match of all time was going to be before we started. It was still TLC 2, amazing. And we're about to start our Elimination Chamber matches. Do you two guys want to pick at your favourites, and we'll see if we can squeeze it into the series?
Of Elimination Chamber matches. Oh gosh, do you know what? I'm gonna actually go with the match where Shayna Baszler just dominated. I'm just gonna go with that one off the top of my head.
My favourite.
One I can think.
Sorry, my favourite chamber event as it was, and I think it was 2009 because Edge walked in as I think WWE champion. And in the first chamber match, and walked out.
Is this when he swapped titles?
Yeah, he walked out in the World Heavyweight title at the end of the show, which again,
that was a good one.
Well, it's so clever when you think about, oh God, they actually, the show made sense as a whole, and I don't think WWE do that a lot nowadays.
Yeah. Actually, do you know what? Can I change mine? I'd actually say when the Elimination Chamber for the female tag titles, because that was like a really good moment for a lot of females out there that wanted to see these belts made.
Very good. Well, listen to the episode and we'll get them covered. And
Awesome.
obviously as well, we're across social media, Twitter @SelectMatchPod. Same for Instagram. We have started doing more on Instagram rather than Twitter at the moment, just to mix things up really. But yeah, come and say hello and tell us how right we are about most things, apart from Chris making predictions on pay-per-views.
Well, the WNR are on and Instagram, across all Google platforms. Send us an email to WNRPodcast@gmail.com and YouTube Podcast, where all latest clips and podcasts go at the same time on YouTube as do SoundCloud on your phone. Jaxie, do you want to tell people where you're available?
Yep, and I'm across Twitter and Instagram @Jaxie Scarlett.
Yeah, fantastic. You can listen to Jaxie with myself on every WWE pay-per-view that we do as well. And of course, next time Jaxie will join us will be for Money in a Bank, which was next month. We're also on Spotify and iTunes, where you can download, subscribe, rate, and review there. So that is it. Next episode of the WNR is catching up with Impact Wrestling with the WNR Dan. And the next one with Select Match Pod. Well, I think we'll definitely do a Halloween one because that's written in the stars, really, isn't it, to do that. But also, I was thinking about having a SummerSlam party, maybe like a kind of pre-show or kind of build up to it, and trying to invite everybody that's kind of been on the show to get everybody's opinion. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, sounds good. Sure. I think that works as well. Saturday night.
Yeah, we'll be available. I'm sure we can. We love a party. We'll be about.
Well, like I said, thank you very much, guys, for being on. It's a pleasure. Like I said, we shouldn't wait so long to do this again, but thank you very much for joining me. And again, Jaxie, fantastic. Always a pleasure, never a chore with you as well. You know that.
Thank you very much. It's always fun coming on here. It was great to meet Select Match Pod.
Yeah, and like I say, anybody listening as well, like I said, might be a few audio issues, but this is the first time that we are doing this, and plus I'm the old man when it comes to technology as well. But that is it. Like I said, you have been listening to the Select Match Podcast. Jaxie Scarlett. I have been James Rowlands. Thanks for listening, everybody, and bye.